forced the stick forward, it dived, and then I pulled it back. And the guy sitting right back there shooting away, and I could see the bullets go over me, then under me, and over. And I kept that up all the way into the cloud bank. So the reason this battle that I got involved in happened was because of Admiral Jocko Clark realized there were juicy targets up there that were not being served. And so he took 3 carriers and 27 surface ships, our support, and in the darkness of night went on up toward Vladivostok, but stopping about halfway off of a city called Changjin on the coast of North Korea. And the first day of our battle, I was on the first flight in good weather and took off and struck manufacturing and warehousing targets. Came back and the weather was deteriorating, but not bad. But I was informed to get something to eat and be ready to go on the next flight in the combat air patrol mission. Oh, wow. And so during that time, the weather really deteriorated and blizzard moved in, and the clouds were from 500 feet off the water to 12,000 feet. And I was briefed with a flight of 4, with my roommate being the leader and a wingman. Then I was the section leader, and with a wingman that I'd never flown with before. I knew the guy, but the only time I ever flew with him. And we briefed, we took off, and we rendezvoused below the clouds at 400 feet. Then we climbed through the clag, we call it the clouds. And while in that climb, we were informed by the Combat Information Center, our controllers, that there were inbound bogies, unknown aircraft, coming from the north, and they were probably 70 miles from us. We were directed to climb in their position. When we got on top of the 12,000 feet of clouds, I could see the 7 contrails, and that was the bogies. And wow. That was assigned as our intercept target. Well, the flight lead had a red warning light that he may have a fuel pump problem, and he and his wingman were directed to come back and remain over the ships in the task force above the clouds. And I took charge, immediately turned on all appropriate switches to the master armament and test fired the guns, and everything was ready to go. And so I took off with pursuit and toward those contrails. As they went over me, they turned around and headed back north. And I could see there were MiG-15s and called them out, and that was my intercept target. So they headed back north, and I assumed they were going back to land. They found out what they wanted to know, that we had combat air patrol and were responsive. And so I climbed in their direction as they headed back north. Their airplane had more speed, more climbability, more everything except turn, and probably turned equally. But when we got in the fight, I was slower. They were showing off things that I couldn't do. But climb, and well, I'll get to that. So I climbed in their direction as they proceeded north, outdistancing me, and they got maybe 40 miles or so ahead of me heading north. And then they broke into 2 groups of 4 airplanes in one direction and 3 in the other, and dove out of the contrail levels, and I lost sight of them and reported that, and combat reported they lost them too because they were a smaller target for radar. So I was ordered to come back toward the task force to set up a barricade between the last sighting of the MiGs and the task force, just to patrol and intercept if they were coming back. And they lost sight of them too because of smaller target.
And at this point, it's just you and one wingman, right? Because the other two guys had to split off to return.
Yeah, it's 2 of us against 7.
Wow.
And in that turn, they intercepted us. They came in at my 10 o'clock position, 12 o'clock. My nose just off to my left, all shooting. They were still in formation, but spread out so they could individually aim. And
they're all shooting their guns at you.
Yeah, and then I fired and said I shot one down. Well, they said, do not engage. And I said, we are engaged. There's no way I could run away without them just overwhelming me. So as they came in and were shooting and coming to pass by, I turned very hard and ended up right behind number 4 guy and had the solution, pulled the trigger, and he went down. And my wingman followed him, and I'm now there with 6 by myself.
Your wingman followed him? What did you?
Yes.
Did your wingman?
Yeah, he just left.
He just left. Okay, so he didn't get shot down. He just departed to follow that
guy.
He
never fired a shot.
Wow. So then you were just left with 6 other guys up there, 6 other MiGs.
That's right.
Where was this, like, if you had to pick like a relative area over Korea, where was this located over? Do you recall?
At sea, probably 60 miles off the coast.
Okay.
Over the Sea of Japan. In the clear area, this was beyond the storm. Clear all the way from forever down to the ocean.
Oh, wow.
And so now the fight is genuine, and the 3 that were left there, the other 3 are coming in from the other side, but these 3 pulled up abruptly and outclimbed me, and they got a couple of thousand feet above me and reversed, coming in, and I'm now their target. And I was going to shoot at the guy on the left that just lost his wingman, but he was in the sun, and I saw the other 2 already shooting. So I reversed, and I got the solution in range, fired a short burst, and their flight leader, who happened to be a World War II ace, or kind of a big-time Russian hero. But anyway, he was shooting, and a short burst, he stopped firing and turned away. I expect he was hit, but damaged, and he was out of the fight. But since he was the guy in charge of all this, he stuck around and not engaged. And his wingman is on me and coming directly and shooting. And I changed to on him and in range, in sight. I got the solution. Short burst, and he stopped firing and didn't maneuver, just came in, slid underneath me, and I'm sure he was dead. So now, instead of 7, there's down to maybe 5, maybe only 4 viable.
Yeah.
And
you're by yourself this whole time, just trying to manage this dogfight with 6 other MiGs.
Yeah.
That's great. What was going through your head during that? Like, were you just very hyper-focused on what you needed to do next?
Fight.
Yeah. That's the only choice you have at that point.
Do the best I can. Mainly self-preservation. I had to keep an eye on my tail because they were now individually taking their turns. They'd come in and fire, and the smart ones would lose the gun sight on me and abruptly turn high and get back in position to come down again. So they got a left-very circle going here of taking their turns on me. And one of them erred, and instead of pulling up before I could aim at him, slid on by and hadn't really put his nose up. I could turn on him, and I was so close. When I hit him, he started coming back, and I had to maneuver abruptly to keep from hitting him.
Like to keep from colliding with his aircraft.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And, okay, we're fighting 35 minutes, longer than I've ever heard of any single fight in the air.
I bet that felt like an eternity.
I was so busy, I didn't run into, feelings or, sizing things up about when is this going to end. I just kept doing what I was doing, which was pretty successful.
Yeah.
And I kept my tail area clear. They were able to aim and shoot, but my airplane at a slower speed could turn inside of them at their greater speed. They're coming whizzing in, and to pull the G's, at the same amount of G's, I would be turning inside of him as the plane just drifts on out. And then when no longer capable of shooting, then it goes back up to come back in again.
So you were more maneuverable than they were because of the speed
as far as turn, not maneuver, climb and all that, they way outside of me.
Oh, but just turning.
Yeah,
you
but
could
just
turn
by turning
tighter?
yes.
Okay.
So that put me inside of his aim capability. So he'd be pulling G's, but I'd be up here and he's firing a fairly good distance behind me. And another guy I hit enough to, he was burning.
Yeah.
And he was just firing. He was straight and level and dropping down. And I was right behind him. And I made the first serious mistake of going after him, just non-maneuvering, and then the guy behind me just moved right in behind me. But I fired him and just poop, 2 rounds, and I was out of ammunition.
Oh,
and man. This guy's going on down. I had to leave him back here. I pulled hard G as I could, and he pulled lead on me. He was at the same speed. So he pulled lead on me and hit me with a 37 millimeter right in the starboard wing butt. And it went into the accessory section of the engine where it cut the cable to the rudder and exploded in the accessory section of the engine, blew out all the hydraulics and punched holes everywhere.
Yeah. At that point, did you realize I need to probably get out of here?
Oh, absolutely.
How did you manage that? And did they pursue you, or how did that work?
They were sitting right on my tail, perfect. And I happened to be aimed at that cloud bank and the task force. And I had the elevator, and I never figured of this before, but God sent me the message, and I forced the stick forward, it dived, and then I pulled it back. And the guy sitting right back there shooting away, and I could see the bullets go over me, then under me, and over. And I kept that up all the way into the cloud bank.
And then you disappeared into the cloud bank?
Yeah, he didn't hit me again.
Wow.
He should have. I should have been dead.
That's insane. Did they break contact completely after you went into the cloud bank?
Yeah, I never saw him again.
Okay, so they just broke off after that point. They probably
I don't know how many. There may be 2. There are not many still there.
Yeah.
So in the clouds, I thought I ought to eject, but I would have died. Help couldn't have gotten to me, and the survival rate, even with the immersion suit on, wouldn't be 20 minutes. No rescue during that time. So yeah. I just stayed with it, planning to get as close as I could before I went in the water, if that's going to happen. I knew the bases of the clouds were 500 feet, so I let down to where I was underneath the clouds. And I'm now coming into the task force, which is at general quarters, in which case all the anti-aircraft on the destroyers and everything are permitted to shoot at anything that isn't identified as friendly.